Back from my house. I had an appointment. I was supposed to get my stuff out from it before it forecloses. It was like agreed upon by my lawyer and my husband's lawyer. When I got there, my husband is filming and stuff, which was expected. But then I couldn't get my stuff. He said, he was filming, he said, "You have to leave, you're trespassing, leave now. You're trespassing, leave now." And then he called the police, and and the house is going to be foreclosed in a few days. I don't have a car, so I had to get a friend who was there with her car to help me get my stuff. And I wasn't able to get it. And it made me think about, like, it's really weird because people fall in love with people, and lots of times the person that they fall in love with does not treat them well. And I know that people will be angry at me for saying this, but I think more often than not, it's kind of the man. And I just wanted to share my thoughts on why I think that is, because sometimes it can seem like falling in love with someone is an illusion, right? Because they're really nice to you at the beginning. They seem like they really care and like they love you, and so then you just love them back, and then they start to change how they behave. And this is just, I mean, it's almost, I don't say it's common, as I don't know if there's any exceptions to this. Maybe there are, though. I hope so. And I start to change how they behave, but you don't stop loving them. You just keep loving them, And why does this happen? And it's like, does that mean that when they love you at first, that's an illusion? And like, if you ask people about this, everyone will like say something like, like we always like to talk about brain chemicals, or like how this or whatever is always for the survival of the species, or something to trick us into procreating. But I honestly don't believe in all that stuff at all. I think it's kind of a twisted way of seeing life. We weren't created to continue the species. That's not what life is about. And if you really break down those ideas, they don't hold water as much as they seem to on the surface, just because they're placed in such a scientific context that people, I think, don't really think about those ideas really deeply and how much sense they actually make. And they have no relationship to what Darwin actually said either, but that's for another video. Regardless of what I think about it is this, that when someone loves you, it's real. The thing is that, once again, I'll get in trouble for this, but I think it's a case that women are closer to the angels and men are closer to hell. But that's not saying women are in any way more valuable, because being too close to the angels when you're living on earth is not necessarily a good thing. I mean, we all know people who are too close to the angels, and it's really not a fucking good thing, right? So I'm not giving women a compliment. I'm just saying I think that's a true statement. It's like, it's really easier for women to be selfless and loving, and also to have like joy in their hearts and things like that. And those things are harder for men. It's harder for men to be selfless and loving. It's harder for them to have joy in their hearts. They're more serious. I think they have more power in a lot of ways. They have certain types of intelligence that women don't have. They're better, I think, at doing things that are completely impersonal for long periods of time. They have extra emotions like rage and like really deep stuff that I think women don't have, that gives them extra power and wisdom in certain situations. And likewise, women have more of these other emotions I don't think men have as much of, which, is probably why God chose us to be mothers, because it's easy for us to be selfless. It's easy for us to be like, goo, that's like not hard. But anyway, so when people fall in love, men are really leaving their element. For women, they're in their element. It's easy to be in love and to be focused on someone else. But men are really out of their element. And women can do female things and men can do feminine things, but it's hard to sustain it over time. You know what I mean? Like, in a tough situation, women can step in and do a masculine thing. But once the emergency's over, we'll tend to revert back to being female. And it's the same with men. It's like they have a feminine side they can tap into, but it's not their resting point. So once the initial crisis is over, they'll tend to fall back into their actual nature. And so I think that that's what we see when people are falling in love, it's like a crisis, you know, it's an opportunity. And men rise to the occasion by tapping into their feminine self. But it's hard for them to sustain that over time. And so they eventually start falling back more into their masculine self. And, you know, then all those like health forces, whatever those are going to start coming into the relationship, because men can't keep it out forever. That's like part of who they are. So in a sense, for men to be in a relationship requires them to be something that they're not, or to do something that's not easy for them to do. Because I think men can be very good, men can be very unselfish, men can be very loving. But I think that for men, those are attainments, you know, it's like they have to actually build moral fiber into their character in order to become those good things. That's why, you know, you see like a man like Mr. Rogers and he's like a national hero, but if there was a female like Mr. Rogers, he would just be a normal female. We wouldn't even think that Mrs. Rogers was especially nice. It's like, of course, you know, females acting that way. But when it's Mr. Rogers, it's like, oh my God, can you believe this man exists? He's so good, you know, because we're recognizing that for a man to become good and selfless is like an attainment, you know? And so, you know, I think that does make it more impressive when men have those qualities, because they had to actually work to achieve them. And that's in no way to say that men have less value, though, because in my opinion, power and goodness are equally valuable, you know, and it's just easier for women to be good, and it's easier for men to act in accordance with power. It's easier for them to be strategic. It's easier for them to do what needs to be done. And that is valuable too. Like that's every bit as valuable as having more goodness, you know, and that's why men and women are supposed to come together, because men's power makes it easier for women to survive. Because I think, personally, speaking for myself, that it's really hard. I find it hard to be a single female, like I do. Because we'll go into that later. But, and I think for men, it's hard for them to have meaning in life. If they don't have some feminine energy, it's hard for them to feel fulfilled. It's hard for them to be happy. Because men can kind of be miserable creatures, you know. Left to their own devices, they might like have achievements, but they can be like crusty and I think not really fulfilled on the inside. And so that's more of what women have to offer men, is the things that make life meaningful. Whereas I feel like men have extra strength in the things that make life actually work. But anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is that I think for women to successfully be in a relationship, like, yeah, they might have to, like, improve themselves or whatever, like, learn some skills, but women like learning those skills. They like improving themselves in that way. So it's really an easy and natural thing for women to invest in. But for men to have a successful relationship requires a lot more effort. Like, they have to actually decide that it's worth it to them, you know, decide that there's some reason that it's worth it for them to be to want to give to someone else. It's like, well, why do they want to do that? What's in it for them, you know? There has to be something that's built into their mind or into their character that really makes them decide that that's a worthwhile undertaking. Because for men, it will be a lot of work. It will be challenging to be in a successful relationship. For women, it will be fun and easy. For men, it will really require a journey and a lot of transformation and growth. So they have to decide that there's something in it that makes it worth it. And if they haven't decided that, then they are not really going to be safe past the initial phase, because it will be work for men. Just like it's work for women to be in battle. Like, it's hard for me to get divorced because I have to see my husband as an enemy. I have to do, like, try to protect myself. I have to try to, I wouldn't say put my own needs above his, but I have to advocate for my own needs. Rather, it would be easier for me to want to do what's best for him. And it's hard to sustain that mindset, you know? It's like, I can maybe do it for a second if there's like an emergency and there's a crisis. It's forcing me to that mindset. But it's really hard to sustain it over time. Like, when I came today, I was just like, James, can't we just, like, work this out, like, without lawyers? Like, we can just divide stuff up. And, you know, I was going to be like, why don't you just keep, I would be happy to let him keep the great majority of the value. I just want enough so I can survive ideally. But because it's hard for me to stay in the mindset of conflict and war and having to focus on myself and to be strategic and selfish, because it's like, are women physically capable of it? Yeah, but it's not how we are naturally designed to be. And so I think that must be what it's like for men in the reverse, you know, that relationships require them to become supernatural in a sense if they want to sustain it over time. And in order to do that, there has to be some reason, some motivation for them, because women can tap into the masculine sides in a crisis, you know, because we change when we're forced to change, usually. Not so much because we want to. I think it's normally because we're forced to. But once a man's in a relationship and the woman loves him, there is no gun to his head telling him he has to be a good man, you know? There's no gun to his head telling him he has to be open, telling him he has to care about someone else's feelings. There's absolutely nothing forcing him to do that, you know? And so he has to want that for some reason, but why would he want that, you know? It's like, what makes a man want that? I don't really know. Anyway, this video is getting too long. All I really wanted to say is that that's my opinion, is that love is real, but it is difficult for men to sustain love due to their demonic nature. No, I'm just kidding. But it's difficult for men to sustain love because it's just more challenging for them to learn to tap into that part of themselves. Anyway, bye.